Blog Talk Radio.
Will I ever see you again?
I dearly hope so, my prince. There is so much more I meant to tell you. Everything you know is about to change.
American Daily Review.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
When America needed them most, two men rose to the occasion. Doug Gibbs of Constitution Radio and PoliticalPistachio.com. Jasmius of PoliticalPistachio.com, Constitution Radio, and the Hard Starboard Radio Network. This is American Daily Review on blogtalkradio.com.
And there is one piece of legislation floating around right now that I endorse publicly and with all my heart, and I hope you do too. I believe if you're a convicted sex offender in this country, when you get out of prison, you should have to put a sign in your yard or on your door that says you're a convicted sex offender because I don't care about your rights anymore. And I'd also like to know where to get one of those signs because I like to keep some kids out of my yard. Thanks for Kinko, the kid
frown. Kinko, Kinko, the kid-loving clown. If the kids just love me back, I'll never wear a frown. Kinko's in his Kinko car, pockets full of change. Lots of dirty pictures and sticky candy canes. All the kids love Kinko for the presents that they get. Silly leather clothes to wear and happy cigarettes. Hi, boys and girls. My name is Kinko the Clown. And I really love you boys and girls. Really, really. But my legs get tired standing out in the parking lot handing out stale Tootsie Rolls to you little rugrats. So if anyone wants to come back to Kinko's trailer and massage his legs, he'd really, really like it. Really, really. Kinko, Kinko, the kid-loving clown. If the kids just love me back, I'll never wear a frown. Kinko, Kinko, the kid-loving clown. If the kids just love me back, I'll never wear a frown. We go to Kinko's clubhouse sometimes after school. We play in Kinko's crawl space, there's never any rules. We have to sit on Kinko's lap, there's never any chairs. Kinko likes to tickle us and give us funny stares. Gee, I haven't had this much fun since Christmas when I got to play Santa Claus and all the boys and girls got to sit on Kinko's lap. But that was in Indianapolis, and thanks to the liberal reciprocity laws here, Kinko can be with you boys and girls today or any time. Jimmy Johnson ran away and didn't say goodbye. Kinko went to look for him to help the FBI. But Kinko had some handcuffs on, his eyes were full of tears. Said, I'll be back to play with you sometime in 20 years. Kinko, Kinko, the kid-loving clown. The parents want to beat me up and run me out of town. Kinko, Kinko, the kid-loving clown. Tar and feather Kinko and run him out of town.
Okay, short eyes, get in that car.
Bye, boys and girls. Bye. Kinko really loves you, boys and girls. Really, really.
You've got to be kidding me. You're it? You're the black plastic.
No, Jasmius.
After a 165-hour interlude, the Saturday afternoon extravaganza has returned here on American Daily Review at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. where, by the way, you will find almost 6 years worth of podcasts for your downloading pleasure, your education, edification, enlightenment, and entertainment in all your life's endeavors. In fact, July 2nd will be the 6-year anniversary of American Daily Review. I was just thinking about that yesterday on Hard Starboard Radio. That Hard Starboard Radio next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, will be our 8-year anniversary. And just while I think of it here, should be I uploaded it. Oh no, it's down here in the queue. This is the happy anniversary clip that I've been talking about all week, and that will be beginning the show on Tuesday on Hard Starboard Radio.
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. For a cheerful toast and fill it, happy anniversary. But be careful you don't spill it, happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, and happy both as happy as can be, celebrating merrily their happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. We not say emphatically it's happy anniversary. Not another day could be a happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy, 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 happy anniversary.
All right, knock it off.
See the material you have available for radio clips when you have a half-century-long knowledge of American pop culture. You can think of anything. You can think of anything that will fit like the pants of a man with 5 penises, like a glove. So that will top the show on Tuesday on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. But today is the Saturday afternoon extravaganza. Today is the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week. By the way, brought to you by All-Star Collision, located at 522 Railroad Street in Corona, California. Any auto detailing or body repair needs that you have, if you're in the Southern California Inland Empire area, there's only one place to go. It's the only place to go. In fact, if you're not in the Southern California Inland Empire area, call AAA, have them tow your car from the other side of the continent, if necessary, to All-Star Collision in Corona, California, 522 Railroad Street. They are the patriots that you turn to if you have any auto detailing or body repair needs. Web address, allstarci.com. Phone number, 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll. They bring you the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week each and every week until we make the jump to weekdays. That's the goal, ladies and gentlemen. So there's that, and there is the book of the week later on, the third hour of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza. We conga line over to KMET1490am.com globally, and the same place on your AM radio dial in the Southern California Inland Empire area for the flagship program of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, Constitution Radio with this man.
I am
Douglas V. Gibbs.
and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Perhaps today is a good day.
Douglas V. Gibbs.
Gentlemen, America's Constitution Authority.
Oh, well, on site, but not inside the building yet. I just pulled into the parking lot. How you doing, everybody?
Well, everybody's doing just fine. Everybody's doing just fine, and everybody hasn't heard from one particular person for 165 hours and 17 minutes.
Well, gosh, it's time to get things rolling then.
Yeah, it's kind of a belated thing. I'm guessing, but yeah. Somebody didn't call on Wednesday like he said he would.
Well, somebody has been so busy that somebody hasn't had time to do anything. Right now, somebody's unlocking the door.
And somebody suspected that very thing.
Well, we've got all kinds of stuff to talk about as always. To disarm the alarm in this building. So, hang on a second.
Oh, I've done that many, many times.
It's already disarmed. Oh. Somebody must be here. Okay. I'm good.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but you sound like Marley's ghost dragging your chains behind you. I'm hearing like a.
Yeah, that was my key. I'm assuming that you heard.
Still hearing it.
Really? Okay. Well, let me hang up and call back, see if it helps.
Okay. All right. Dun 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 dun. How about we play this?
Our records indicate that you've been lied to. Listen to the truth. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on KMET.
Coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 AM.com. KMET 1490 AM Smart Talk Radio in the Southern California Inland Empire area, broadcasting into the desert areas of Palm Springs and thereabouts. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And that, what is that? An hour and 41 minutes from now, as a matter of fact. We are just. Maybe I should have played one of the longer versions. You know, the ones featuring me.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Tired of the lies? Come here for the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs.
On KMET 1490 AM, the flagship station of the burgeoning political pistachio radio network. And, of course, the flagship show, eventually, inevitably, of KMET 1490 AM, Smart Talk Radio for the Southern California Inland Empire area. And, wow, I thought Doug was going to call right back. But yeah, see, that's the problem with making Constitution Corner the first thing that we talk about, the kickoff of the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, because that's really more Doug's bailiwick than mine. I mean, I can carry it. I can talk about it. I can discuss it, but because that's just the kind of guy I am. That's the versatility of your host on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, your co-host on American Daily Review, Constitution Radio. But I don't want to. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to practice any gimmick infringement, which is kind of what this would be. Although I'm sure I would have leave to do so, leave and liberty. But if Mr. Gibbs is going to reconnect, then I don't want to spoil the master's thunder. Let's just put it that way. I mean, it's like it's like if Peter had elbowed aside Jesus and started delivering the Sermon on the Mount himself. You know, it's like, yeah, Peter could have carried it, I suppose, but it wouldn't have been the same. You know, everybody has their specialty, their niche, their gimmick, and it's not a gimmick really. That's the expression. It's not a gimmick. It's the facts. It's the truth. It's what the founders gave us, the United States Constitution. The Constitution is the context of conservatism. There's something wrong with Mr. Gibbs's long-range communications equipment. He hasn't called back in yet. Well, I can give a preview of the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week that we will plow into as soon as Mr. Gibbs is back on the line. Of course, we have Constitution Corner regarding the power, the congressional power of the purse strings. We got Bikers Gone Wild, the biker war that happened in Texas last weekend. We got All Hail Mob Rule, mainly in Baltimore, but also in Ferguson, Missouri as well, and with a little dollop of Scheherazade included for gratuitous measure. We got Homophobes to the Furnaces. It's symbolized by the impending surrender of the Boy Scouts of America to the Lavender Lobby on Gay Scoutmasters. We've got anti-Christian persecution rampant. And what's happening? You know, I talked about this this week on Hard Starboard Radio. Over 100,000 Christians a year are being martyred around the world, and if anybody thinks that isn't coming here inevitably, they haven't been paying attention to Jess Dooley's Twitter feed. You recall that name, Memories Pizza, Indiana. Let's burn them down, because they actually wanted to protect religious freedom, the First Amendment. What else we got here? We got distractions to tyranny, like Barack Obama declaring climate change the true national security threat. And also another objective of Operation Jade Helm. We've got government health care or else, specifically Older and sicker Americans are signing up for Obamacare in droves. Younger, healthier Americans, not so much. Exactly as we predicted 5 years ago. The joined at the hip derailment of Houses Clinton and Bush, Barack Obama's trade deal, the trade I forget the name now. I remember the acronym, TPAA. Let's see. What is that? The Trade Promotion Authority Act, which, by the way, passed in the United States Senate yesterday, 62 to 37. And one of its surprising opponents was Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, who's usually right about just about everything, but kind of skidded off into the ditch on that one. Is that what I was looking for? No, it's back over here. Second guessing Iraq, more on more on that, more on the 2020 higgledy-piggledy Iraq hindsight instead of focusing on current national security threats. Fear Islam, but be silent about it and give in to Islam's demands, or in other words, Dhimmism is the cure for Islamophobia. That's what we're being sold. And the lead big story of the week, brought to you by All Star Collision, the National Popular Vote movement, which is a blatant attempt to undermine the Electoral College, do away with just about the last surviving vestige of federalism, render the states completely irrelevant, make America a pure democracy, and guarantee that the 7 most violent rioting cities and riotous cities in America determine who the President of the United States is until such time as elections are finally canceled and they finally become honest about their intentions. And I don't think that day is very far away, actually. And Mr. Gibbs still has not returned. So in the interests of being able to get through all this, I will preview. I'll start it going, and then Mr. Gibbs can take it over at the point when he reconnects. Our Congressional Constitution Corner, Congressional Power of the Purse Strings, specifically Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution, which reads, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Now, this is more pertaining specifically to taxation as opposed to spending, but by Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1, establishing that all bills for raising revenue originate in the House, the Constitution grants to the voice of the people the power to fund or defund any action of government affected by legislative action. The power of the purse strings gives the House of Representatives the ultimate check against the other parts of government, and ultimately gives the House a significant amount of power, theoretically, if, of course, the leadership of the House is willing to use it. Should the House of Representatives, for example, disapprove of a military action being carried out by the Commander-in-Chief, the action can theoretically be stopped by the House of Representatives simply by defunding the military operation, or not including funding for that action in a budget proposal. Of course, again, the political aspects of that, that is another question. But the legal power of defunding is there. The Constitution specifically provides for it, enumerates it, whether the leadership of the House at the whatever time in question actually uses that power, that's another story. Refusal to accept the proposal by the Senate or the executive places at risk the funding for other parts of the government as well. And if you haven't caught on yet that this is the government shutdown dynamic, I mean, as soon as I mention that, I shouldn't have to explain anything else about the actual real-life application of Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1. The Senate, though unable to originate bills raising revenue, may propose amendments to be added to such a bill that originated in the House of Representatives, but no bill raising revenue may originate in the Senate. Oh, yeah, that was one of the big problems with Obamacare, was that the Obamacare bill that passed Congress back in 2010 originated in the Senate, and it included revenue-raising provisions. So just on that ground, for that reason alone, on those grounds alone, Obamacare is unconstitutional. Never mind all the other reasons. Just on that fact alone, that the Obamacare bill that passed originated in the Senate, therefore, bam, just. You don't have to look any further. On that grounds alone, it was unconstitutional. If the Senate made changes, the bill would still need to go back to the House of Representatives for approval. The approval by both houses of Congress must be for an identical bill. The conference committee, and that gives the people a say. It also gives the states a say, or it did when the states were represented in Congress through the United States Senate. So now let me see. Oh, yes, Mr. Constitution is back. I tried not to infringe too much on your gimmick, but I just took a test drive through Constitution Corner today.
I'm glad you did, because right after I hung up on you, Glenn, the person who's behind this studio here, called me, and, well, it became a call. And, he explained that how the reason why the alarm wasn't on is he had already been down here, and he turned on the lights and warmed up the equipment. And that way, when I get here later on in the morning, everything will be ready to roll. And I said, well, I've gotten here. He says, oh, already? Okay, well, I'll be there, by, 1. I said, okay. So, and of course, the conversation is longer than that, obviously, but, So anyway, so that's that. But you're doing a very good job. I don't even feel the need to intrude here, except for the fact that one of the reasons why I wanted this on here is because one of the stories of the week is Obamacare. And if we go back to when Obamacare was first created, well, because it's a tax or it has fines or something like that, it's supposed to raise revenue and all that. So therefore, it had to originate in the House of Representatives. However, the House
that was exactly
the House wasn't cooperating.
That's exactly the example that I used.
Oh, so I missed the great example.
Yeah, the fact that the version of Obamacare that passed Congress back in 2010 originated in the Senate, and because Obamacare had revenue-raising provisions in it, on that grounds or on those grounds alone, it was unconstitutional.
Yeah, well, so what they did to try to cover up for that is they took a House bill, stripped the language from it. The House bill actually had, it was a totally unrelated bill. All they wanted was the HR number. And they stripped the bill of all of its language till it was basically a blank slate, sort of like Obama. And then they put all of the Senate bill into it, and so it was a Senate bill, but with a House number. Therefore, see, it originated in the House.
Yeah, it was a Trojan. It was a legislative Trojan horse, except that it wasn't really concealing anything. But then again, that gets back to voter vigilance, paying attention to what our leaders are doing, and then holding them accountable for it at the next opportunity. But that's what that was. It was a Trojan horse. It was just putting the Obamacare wolf inside ostensibly constitutional clothing.
Yeah, I guess that's the way you could put it. Now that's Article 1, Section 7. And part of the reason I brought that up also is that was also one of the lessons that we did on Tabletop News this week. Tabletop News has been altered a little bit. You know how, and for those of you listening, Tabletop News is a local publication, a print publication that I put out that's starting to grow. And we got Constitution Corner then on the back. I had something from the Constitution. It was a little excerpt from the Constitution and a text from the Constitution just to have it there. Well, that has become an article in its own right, and that now normally is between half to 2/3 coverage on that particular column on that page. So anyway, that right there, that article that was Political Pistachio, that was the article that was in Tabletop News on the back page.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that came from. We did the Constitution Corner, by the way, in Tabletop News was religious freedom, but I took that link and stuck it in a different story because religious freedom has. Well, it has a lot to do with marching the Christians through the Evans, which is what's going on.
Well, it's like I said several times this week on Hard Starboard Radio. Over 100,000 Christians are being martyred every year at various places around the world. And if anybody doesn't think that it's like my recently retired pastor used to say, we always talk about persecution of Christians and Christian martyrs and voice of the martyrs and so forth, in terms of it being over there, on the other side of the world, but if anybody thinks that that's not coming this direction, they're not paying attention to what's going on in this country.
Oh, exactly. Now, I have just realized just now that the sheet that I printed with this week's stories is sitting on my table, and what I grabbed was last week's. So I'm going to have to turn on my computer to look up the list. But while we're waiting for that, you could introduce the next story.
Well, that would lead us to story number 10, biker gang bloodbath in Texas, which was interesting to me in the context of the fact that what did the gun confiscators, the gun grabbers, the Second Amendment haters immediately do? They immediately cited, wow, this is because of conceal and carry in Texas. Which is retarded because this biker war in Texas, in which I forget how many people were killed in this. It was upward over a dozen people at least that I recall were killed in this, and there were arrests in the hundreds. I mean, it was just a huge war, and literally with shooting on both sides. But that is really substantively no different than gang wars between the Crips and the Bloods. I mean, it was criminality on display. It was the criminal element destroying itself. I mean, that had nothing to do with Second Amendment rights, the right to keep and bear arms, conceal and carry. So it was just another typical, let's exploit an unfortunate and violent incident for our own radical extremist ends.
Which is being compared to the Ferguson and Baltimore riots because white people riot too.
Well, I guess they were white. I didn't really pay much.
They're bikers. There's no such thing as Hispanic or black bikers, and if they are, they're white. That's what I've been told. That is what I've been told.
Well, and this was in Waco, Texas. See, the difference between the two, though, is that these biker gangs were killing each other. The uprisings in Ferguson and in Baltimore weren't. It wasn't black, although it wasn't black on black. It was black on white, black on the cops. These were two biker gangs,
and black on their neighborhood,
and black on their neighborhoods. Whereas this was just two biker gangs trying to wipe each other out. And if I recall,
it wound up with at least 5 biker gangs. Here's what's fascinating about it. You talk about, who the violence was against. Not a single employee from the restaurant or from law enforcement was injured or killed. Every injury and every death were members of one of these gangs.
9 people, for the record, 9 people were left dead and many more wounded, and a lot more than that arrested. In fact, 3 rival gang groups converging on the area was enough to alert authorities. Only 3? Really? And later the number. Yeah, and it wasn't hard to do.
But now think about this. But think about this for a second. I want listeners. I want you to think for a moment. 3 rival gangs, what wound up being 5 rival gangs, converging on the same area, alerted police, and they made sure that they were present. Yet mosques are built and terrorist groups converge and have 36 terrorist camps, and that's not enough to get their consideration.
No, it's all in what your incentive is, what your motivation is. White bikers, let's take them down. Let's bring them to justice. Islamic jihadists or black insurrectionists, they're of the right tribe, so you got to treat them with kid gloves, apparently.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, because they have a common enemy with the ruling elite, us.
Yeah, the politicization of law enforcement. It's that simple. Now, if this had happened, this happened in Texas, so the cops were prepared. If this had happened in, say,
not only this, but once again, the cops proved to be very good shots in Texas.
Funny how that works, huh? If this had happened in, say, Chicago or New York or Baltimore, where the cops have been just demonized and made to be the enemy, made out to be the real criminal element. I put up a post at politicalpistachio.com right before the show today. I know this is going to come as shocking news to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. But are you aware that the rate of violent crime is spiraling in Baltimore in the first few months of this year, and especially since April 19th, when Freddie Gray met his fate?
Now that the police have been put in their place. Did we lose you?
No.
Oh, okay. I said now that the police have been put in their place, and then I didn't hear a response. I was wondering.
No, I was just checking to make sure that I was still with y'all.
Well, careful saying y'all. We might be accused of hillbilly patriotism again.
Well, I'd wear that as a badge of honor. That's why I use it so much in my posts and writings and maunderings at politicalpistachio.com. It's just kind of a verbal shorthand and kind of a stylistic motif. Also, kind of irony, since I hate country music. But at any rate, this incident just kind of illustrates how the law enforcement is supposed to work. 3 and eventually 5 biker gangs tear into each other and create a huge violent incident, and then the law enforcement comes in and they enforce the law.
Right.
There's no politics involved in this. It's just straightforward law. They broke the law, they egregiously, and the law enforcement came in and did its job. If only the Ferguson and Baltimore riots could have been handled that effectively and efficiently.
Well, if
In fact,
only.
Yeah, if only. 192 was the official number of arrests last weekend. So, it's an illustration of how things should be versus how things aren't in many other areas of the country. You ready to move on?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, what the heck. Story number 9, all hail mob rule. Speaking of the other side of the Waco, Texas biker war coin, you have yesterday, as a matter of fact, Marilyn Mosby, the Maryland state attorney for Baltimore, announced the grand jury indictments of the Baltimore Six. And aside from a little tweak here and there, all her ridiculous overcharging was rubber stamped by this grand jury, which in turn tends to suggest how stacked that grand jury is. So that's going to go forward. And, I'm really starting to think that Marilyn Mosby is not, or at least not just trying to set up bigger and better riots later this summer. I'm really starting to think that she can. I'm really starting to think that she believes she can win all convictions on all these charges. I'm really starting to believe that because the way she's conducting herself, the way that she's turning it into an embryonic Senate campaign next year to succeed Barbara Mikulski. That's what it looks like. She's playing this up, and then she'll get the entire book thrown at the Baltimore Six, and then she'll be the hero of Baltimore, the hero of Freddie Gray, and then she'll ride that notoriety into the United States Senate or some other high regime position. And then, of course, when it all blows up in her face. Because the media is going to how the media is going to cover this. She could win convictions on all the reasonable charges, reckless endangerment, involuntary manslaughter, things that pertain to negligence or which are reasonable charges. But if she doesn't get that second degree heart murder charge, if she doesn't get that, if she doesn't get any of the deliberate malicious charges, which she won't if it's anywhere near a reasonable and rational jury, then the media is going to cover that as the Baltimore Six were found not guilty of killing Freddie Gray. It's going to be just like the L.A. riots, just like the L.A. cops, the LAPD were found not guilty of beating Rodney King. So that's how the media is going to cover it. So even though she will have gotten convictions on the reasonable charges, it won't matter because that's not what she sold the people with this overcharging of the Baltimore Six.
And it has nothing to do with the law, nothing to do with justice, and everything to do with race baiting and the race war and so on and so forth. The division that our president has created. And divide and conquer. That's what the left does. They divide and conquer, and they've got this down to a T.
Oh yeah. In fact, speaking of Barack Obama. A very interesting development this week. Apparently, Barack Obama has chosen the black rioters over his civilian national security force brown shirts. Obama administration, let's see, what's the quote here? Announced Monday that it will ban federal transfers of certain types of military-style gear from local police departments as the president seeks to respond to a spate of incidents that has frayed trust in communities across the country. The banned items include tracked armored vehicles, bayonets, and grenade launchers. Okay. According to a task force report released by the White House, other equipment, including tactical vehicles, explosives, and riot equipment, will be transferred only if local police provide additional certification and assurances that the gear will be used responsibly, according to the report. Now, remember back in 2008, when Barack Obama talked about that we need a civilian national security force that's just as strong and just as powerful as the United States military. And they've been implementing that policy very quietly. We've talked about it here before over the course of the last few years through the Department of Homeland Security, the militarization of local police departments. Well, that's where the Ferguson uprising and now Baltimore has kind of created a conundrum there. Does Barack Obama continue to delegate or plan to use local police departments to implement his eventual declaration of martial law, or is what's more useful? In other words, and apparently
he could just federalize the police.
Well, yeah, but it appears
Holder and other people have called for that.
It appears, and there's an angle to that with Loretta Lynch continuing Eric Holder's discrediting of local control of local law enforcement. But apparently, in political terms, Barack Obama has decided that the rioters are more politically useful to him than militarized local police departments that are not yet under his direct control. So it's just kind of a you don't often see that where two tentacles of the Obama tyranny come into some degree of conflict with each other. So he actually had to make a decision this week. Another way of putting it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting development. Apparently the road to tyranny is not entirely without bumps, although I have confidence that he'll be able to overcome them. Did you you had a post under the title "Militant Racism at Union Square"? Did you want to make any comments about that?
Yeah. Did you watch the video of that? There was a video in that post. Basically, what happened was there was a group of people they call hipsters, which are, in other words, your gay, metrosexual, maybe gay, maybe not, but they think that they're being independent and unique and different because they all dress alike in a weird style with the modern, it's just your typical rebellion. The punkers were this typical rebellious group, whatever. But anyway, so they're hipsters, and they tend to be these progressives that are your, what do you call that? What were those progressive Tea Party wannabes? The Wall Street
Occupy, the Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy, yeah, yeah. These people that occupy people. Well, they're those people and the people who believe that there's a conspiracy going on. The Greys and the Lizard people are fighting over control over Washington. Anyway, yeah. And anyway, so this elderly, well, I shouldn't say elderly, but older than them, black man, comes looking for trouble with these guys and starts yelling at him. He calls himself King, and how they, that he, I can't remember his exact language, but then after one of the hipsters kind of jumps him and removes him, this other one, a little more sinister looking and all black, gentleman comes up and says, "You should be bowing to him. You should be bowing to King."
Yeah,
all,
you cleaned
all
up.
white.
Yeah, you cleaned up the phrase.
Yeah. I actually put asterisks in the vowels of some of these words just to, so it wasn't blatant, but some of the language that was used. But he's basically saying, that you're all going to die, and the cameraman is a Army veteran. He says, who's y'all? White people? He says, yeah. And he says, y'all going to die. All you and your, I can't remember the exact language. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was just.
Oh, yeah,
but it typified the black nationalism attitude. It typified it. The Black Panther and black nationalism. This was a group called the 5 Percenters. They're basically a black nationalist group, much like the Black Panthers, but smaller in their, membership. But but this, the reason why I put it on there is it typifies what black nationalism is.
Oh yeah. In fact, the specific verbatim threat was when the cameraman asked, "You talking about white people?" And he said, "Yeah. By the end of this year, you'll be dead." And then the cameraman retorts, "Is that a death threat, black man? It's already happening," responded the thug. So that's the mindset, that's the attitude, that's the intent.
Okay,
so,
now I'm going to hang up my phone because I just called on Facebook. I don't want to test the mic anyway and all that, but no, so it's a lot easier because then I have two hands and I don't have to worry about an earpiece and all that jazz. So. Let me hang up, and we'll get me on Skype. Hold on. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
In fact, it's a better connection actually.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got a
slightly less
going.
up.
Yeah. Well, I think the phone signal is not the greatest in here.
Yeah, I think we've just witnessed that for ourselves, I think. Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, good. That means it'll sound great on the radio program later, too.
Absolutely.
That radio program being Constitution Radio on KMET, 1490 AM, 1 o'clock Pacific. That's 1 hour from now.
1 hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah. So now I can find the list and catch up. I've been playing around with this thing this whole time. That's the reason why you're probably wondering why I was kind of being quiet. That was a part of it, trying to. Yeah. But American Daily Review, folks. I always let I don't know if that's the right word, but I always let Jasmius take the head there. Not only because it's he's the one that pretty much runs everything on it, but also gives me the ability to do some preparations and other things, eat and stuff like that.
Which I have yet to do today, because I put 4 posts up on politicalpistachio.com this morning before the program. So I was busy. Busy.
Let me tell you something that happened real quick before we go to the next story, as we slowly go through these stories with only an hour left. Jeez Louise. But on Tuesday, I spoke to the Temecula Valley Women's Federated group, and what a great group. I love the introduction of American Daily Review today because it scared away all of the family listeners. And I don't know which was worse, the fitting like a glove comment or Kinko the clown. But anyway.
Well, it seemed to fit in with story number 8, so I thought I'd just run with it.
The next story, yeah. So talk about getting people to hang in their seats just a little bit longer. But anyway, so I go out to Temecula Valley Women's Federated. Great group. A lot of them knew me, but they'd never heard me speak before. And people who, I mean, they know me quite well. They walk up to me, "Oh gosh, you can speak." So, yes, I can.
Who knew?
Yeah. But the shocker was Thursday. I'm also listening. You know what? Hang on a second. I'm going to go unlock a door. Hang on a second.
live internet radio, ladies and gentlemen, here on American Daily Review, the Saturday afternoon.
We had to let Alex into the building. Alex has arrived. We had to let Alex in the building, and I had it locked because I didn't want, because the office is closed on Saturdays, but we're in here, and I didn't want, some homeless person walking by, hey, an unlocked door, let's see what's in there. Food. This is my food, buddy. Got it from Baker's. But anyway, so on Thursday I had the opportunity. I had no Constitution class on Thursday. I had the wonderful opportunity to speak to the Riverside County Republican Party. Now, let me explain something, folks. The Republican Party tends not to like me. I'm just way too conservative for them. In fact, there's a lot of people in the Republican Party who don't like me, not because they've heard me speak or not because they've talked to me, but because of everything they've heard. I'm a radical. And so they go by what they've heard, and they make their decisions based on that. So here I am going out to the Republican Party, all the way out to Palm Desert, too, so it's an hour-and-a-half drive. And I'm like, this is great. There's nothing that's going to, slow me down on this. And then about then my radiator popped. So I pulled over. I put some liquid into it. I limped to a Walmart that so happened to be a couple off-ramps up the road, poured in some stop leak, get on the freeway, and suddenly I hear another pop. I pull over. I get oil pouring out the bottom of my car. I kid you not. So what had happened, though, is last time I got my what I realized is last time I got my oil change, someone who worked on it didn't put the filter on all the way, and it had worked its way up. Luckily, the filter was kind of wedged in there, so now I take this filter, I screw it back on, I put some oil in my car, I continue on the road. Now, understand, I'm to the point now where I'm feeling like there is some type of force trying to keep me from getting there. I'm starting to really think this way. Now understand, I'm dressed up nice, and my hands are now covered in 50-50, and which is radiator fluid and water mixed, and and oil, motor oil. My fingernails look wonderful by this point. I'm continuing on the freeway. Then I hit the up into the desert area, and the winds are howling to the point where rigs have pulled over because they're afraid of driving it. And my little Corolla is all over the road. I'm having to drop now down to about 35 miles an hour just to keep from swerving all over the road.
Holy
crap! And I'm thinking to myself, thank God I left early. I mean, so here I am, covered in vehicle goo, blowing all over the road, going at slow speed. I get there with about 10 minutes to spare. Now, understand, I left an hour early just in case, there were obstacles. And it turned out to be good. I get there 10 minutes early. I run into the bathroom, wash up the best I can, and go in there, and it turned out to be a wonderful event. But here's what was funny about it. I was telling my mom about this yesterday, and I said, I almost wish there was a camera there, because as I'm talking about this, some of the Republicans in that room, who I know and I would consider probably leaning more towards establishment, after hearing me speak, they almost looked like the Mask with his jaw dropped down to the ground. If you can picture that image, it was almost comical, because these people are like, I didn't know that. Wow, it's worse than I thought, kind of thing, right? Now, they specifically wanted me to speak on executive orders, but because I am the guy that I am, I added a lot of other things. And I began it with my story, and I know some of you have heard it, where America, we are a raft going down the Niagara River. And we've got this guy with big ears on the front of the boat, saying, you hear that in the distance? The Niagara Falls. That's hope and change. Well, it's not hope and change. It's our destruction. So the question is, are we going to start rowing in the opposite direction to move away from those falls? And we right now in this boat, we are so close to the sign on the Niagara River that says the point of no return, which, if you pass it, doesn't matter how good of a swimmer you are, how good of a rower you are, how good of a motor you have, you're going over the falls. We're so close to that sign that we can see the small print, made in China. So the question is, The question is, are we going to start rowing in the opposite direction? Are we going to get enough people rowing and throw that sucker off of the boat and into the water? Here's the thing. Here's what happens, and it happens many times in history. We row, we row, we row. We can't hear the falls anymore. We throw up our hands, hooray, and we put down our oars. And then that current starts moving us right back towards the falls. That current, that's the progressive left. It never stops. It never, ever stops. It always pushes you towards the falls. It is our job to be eternally vigilant, not just for ourselves, but for our posterity. And, and as I've talked about on this program before, in the preamble, ourselves as lowercase, posterity is capitalized because the founders had the same opinion. Yeah, they were putting on the line their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor for themselves, but especially for those yet to be born, especially for their capital P posterity, emphasis. They were handwriting. They didn't type in italics for emphasis, folks. So,
because they didn't have them. So,
not yet. Yeah, but well, Al Gore was not born yet, but I'm sure he invented a number of things before he invented the internet.
He invented the printing press too, as I understand it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would,
And the time machine that got him back there to invent it.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. Oh, now he's got to move around a little bit more to try to start a plague. But anyway, so the plague's already started is the thing, though. It's a political plague. But anyway, so I'm talking about this. Then I go into executive orders. Article 1, Section 1, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. In other words, only Congress has the power of legislative powers. We've got a president who's issued somewhere between 35 and 45 executive orders to modify the Obamacare Affordable Care Act law on its own. And people say, well, gosh, Doug, Ronald Reagan, had executive orders. I mean, other presidents have more than Obama.
That's not the point.
Yeah, I don't care how many he's had. It's what they're all about. I mean, Ronald Reagan, be honest with you, more than half of his was to rescind or repeal Carter's and Johnson's and other knuckleheads in the history.
Roosevelt.
So someone actually asked me a question afterwards that cracked me up. Say, well, Doug, since the executive order being used by Carter or Johnson was modifying law, then how could Reagan repeal it? Because then he's affecting law. If it's unconstitutional, it'll affect law.
No.
The executive order was unconstitutional in the first place. We're repealing it so that it doesn't. Anyway. So, but these people, and here's what was interesting. I didn't expect to sell many books or get very many people on my email list with the Republican Party because, I'm the enemy. I'm too conservative for these people. So after they picked their jaws up off the ground, I sold $300 worth of books, and I had the largest stack of email requests to be on my list I've ever had at any event. So here's what this tells me. The Republican Party is hungry for the truth. It's full of a bunch of idiots that have been feeding them a bunch of crap, and the ones who don't totally believe the crap are not the proponents of that crap, for lack of a better way of saying it. They are hungry for the truth. They are seeking it out, and when it comes to them, they are excited. So I didn't see myself as the enemy going into there or to speak to the Republican Party, and I shouldn't. I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican practically my whole life. And I believe the Republican Party is our vehicle to turn this all around if we would use this vehicle properly. But the thing is, the Republican Party's been infiltrated. So I really felt almost like a missionary.
Going into the cannibals village, yeah.
Exactly. And so I spent a lot of time with a couple of the gentlemen there, and I spoke to them and enjoyed their company. And these are people that are not necessarily highly favored by conservatives locally. And one of the persons called me and said, hey, I heard you were hobnobbing with such and such person. They're quite the rhino. Why would you want to hang out with them? I said, so that I can teach them something. I don't poke them in the chest or throw them overboard. I teach them. Now, if they are taught and are still jerks and refuse to comply, hey, buddy, change the letter after your name to a D, please. But until then, I'm going to try to teach them, because our problem is we've got this horse in this horse race with a jackass, and our horse doesn't obey. It kicks us, it bites us, and we're pushing it from behind. It keeps kicking us, and we don't know why. Well, quit trying to push it. It's going to kick you, of course. It's going to keep biting you. Grab it by the reins and lead it. Teach it. Train it to be a good racehorse.
Oh yeah, I mean even our Lord managed to win over some of the Pharisees.
And the thing is, too, is most of the people in this Republican meeting were conservatives. Almost, I would say a majority of them were, and a lot of them I've heard me speak before and all this other stuff. And I'm not putting down this particular group because it was a great group, but there are elements in the Republican Party, and there were elements in that room that are not necessarily looked upon favorably by conservatives. And the problem is, and I love the Tea Party, and although I don't necessarily consider myself a Tea Partier, I do feel that I am loosely associated with the Tea Party. But the problem is that there's this idea from the establishment and the Tea Party that they're supposed to be at war with each other. The Tea Party's there to give you guys an idea of what's going on. Tea Party, don't poke them in the chest, teach them. Establishment, quit thinking that's all they're going to do is poke you in the chest and listen. And if you think you have you have something to put into the pot, put it in there too. Because I'm going to tell you right now, this enemy, they don't see really a difference between Republicans and Tea Partiers and Libertarians and Mormons and Christians and all of that. They don't see those differences. All they see is a single enemy that wants to stand in the way of their agenda.
Of progress. Yeah, I tell you, I have the same feeling that the proud father when he feels when his progeny, his posterity come around to his way of thinking, because what you've just got through saying is what I have been saying and arguing for, how long has it been now, 4.5 years, that there is no necessary conflict between the Tea Party and the establishment. We're all on the same team. We're both needed to pull the oars, to row the country, to row the boat away from the falls, and we should be working. We have more in common than not having things in common. We're all on the same side, and we all want the same thing, or at least most of us. And so it's really gratifying to hear that, because you're exactly right. There's no reason for us to be at war, and if they're willing to listen, then we should be guiding them back toward the light. I mean, how did Professor X put it? He said, just because someone stumbles and loses their way doesn't mean they're lost forever.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is, too, is this is the quote that I put on. I have a founding quote that I put on the Tabletop News every week. And this is actually my quote, but I put it was anonymous because I just felt the need to put this particular quote in there instead of what I usually put a Jefferson quote or a Washington quote. And here it is.
Right.
Now, like I said, this is actually my quote, and it might be a variation of other people's, saying something similar. Don't grumble. In all things, there is opportunity. But the problem is we are so reactive, and we are so on each other's throats that we're not seeing these opportunities. And right now, there is an opportunity. I had lunch with a congressional figure locally, Dr. Weiss. He's the, I think it's District 36 member of Congress. And for lack of a better way of putting it, the guy is a Marxist, commie, leftist, socialist bastard. And I had lunch with him. And people go, "What are you doing?" Well, first of all, I want to know what his arguments are so I know how to respond to them when other people throw them at me. Number two, I might plant some seeds. Even that crazy leftist, Marxist, communist, socialist bastard there might be, well, it's just like with Darth Vader, there might be that little bit of good left in him, we'll plant that seed. And the third reason, and my main reason, is I'm trying to keep tabs on my Republicans. I'm trying to find out what they're up to and if they're doing what I want them to do so that I can correct them if necessary, since we're trying to train our horse properly. Who better to go to? Yeah, who better to go to get intel on what my Republicans are doing than someone who hates them? Trust me, Dr. Ruiz was more than happy to give me all kinds of stuff on my guys because he wants me to go after them because he heard about me kind of getting hard on being difficult, should I say, on Ken Calvert last year during the immigration deal, which I got a lot of criticism for, by the way, not just because I went after this Republican, but I did it during an election, time. Well, you're helping the Democrats when you do that. Hey, my guy stepped out of line. I'm going to correct him.
Well, besides which, it's a safe district, so it's not like he was going to lose.
This is true. Trust me. Well, right now it's a safe district. Trust me, the left is doing everything they can to change this area to blue. I mean, some of the stuff that's going on in some of these cities to try to bring in voters from L.A. Low-income housing, all that jazz.
It's not specifically aimed at Calvert, though. That's what I was saying.
Well, no, it's specifically claimed at it's basically specifically aimed at the Gibbs pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're all red in the southern little section here. Riverside County, small parts of San Bernardino County, in other words, Inland Empire area, and then parts of San Diego County are for the most part red. Everything else is, absolutely completely nuts blue. Well, and there's parts of Orange County that's still a little red, but that's getting smaller and smaller every day. But anyway, now that we've gone through all that, now we need to go to story number 8 because I want you to understand how I'm looking at this stuff, all right? Homophobes to the furnaces is the title. You like that? That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. Although the homophobe should have been in quotes, but other than that, it was a very good label for this particular story. And now the two that were most at the top of my list, I put them both up at politicalpistachio.com yesterday. Number 1, Boy Scouts prepare to surrender to the gay lobby. Now this was Robert Gates, yes, that Robert Gates, Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush, and then felt right at home, continuing in that job under Barack Hussein Obama. Well, after he left the Obamagon, my reference for the Pentagon, he was brought on board by the Boy Scouts of America to be their president for a 2-year term. Well, yesterday, or maybe it was Thursday, Robert Gates was addressing a meeting of the BSA leadership, and he recommended that the Boy Scouts drop their opposition to gay scoutmasters because it's better if we do it ourselves than to have the courts inflict it upon us. So he's saying, now just totally surrender. Let's just bend over. They're gonna sodomize us anyway. So we better to do it ourselves and retain some degree of fictitious control over it. Now, what he's saying, what he was suggesting is that the Boy Scouts of America national organization decentralized decisions about whether or not to accept gay scoutmasters to local chapters. So, like if a church-sponsored Boy Scout organization wanted to not have gay scoutmasters, they could do so. And if a secular Boy Scout sponsor decided they wanted to allow gay scoutmasters, then they could do so. But that's delusional because all it would take is one local Boy Scout chapter to say no to a gay scoutmaster, and the prospective gay scoutmaster sues, and then they're going to go right after the jugular of the national organization anyway. So it really doesn't make any difference. And now the thing about this, in the conclusion I draw, is that the Boy Scouts are damned if they do, damned if they don't, because they are, if they'd follow Robert Gates's advice, then Christian parents and organizations, and a large chunk of the rank and file Boy Scouts are going to abandon the BSA and protest. And if they don't follow Robert Gates' advice, then the courts are going to basically shut them down if they don't allow gay scoutmasters. So in other words, they're going to be assimilated or destroyed one way or the other. And in the bigger picture, though, anybody who thinks that they can withdraw from the Boy Scouts and form our own organization along the same values that the Boy Scouts were originally founded over a century ago, they're dreaming as well, because there is no way, I mean, especially after having overcome the Boy Scouts, there is no way that the gay lobby is going to allow any successor Boy Scout organization to escape that same dragnet. And this is what happens. And we always knew it was going to happen when the gay lobby, who years ago, before they gained power and ascendancy and control over society, demanded tolerance from us. Now that they're in the driver's seat, they're not going to tolerate anything. Everybody will be gay, or they will be destroyed. We've seen it on gay marriage, and now we're seeing it on the Boy Scouts.
And someone says to me, well, why don't they just have, we got the Boy Scouts, got the Girl Scouts, so they can have like the Rainbow Scouts or the Gay Scouts or something. And I said, because that's not what they want. The leftism, it's like my friend who said we can divide America into two and have a conservative America and a Democrat America or liberal left America. I said, because the left is never satisfied with something like that. They do not want just to congregate with themselves. They want to silence their opposition. They want to force you to comply with what they want or be eliminated, period. Mm-hmm. That's the way it works. And people don't seem to understand that this is a war. It's a political war. And you may have not declared that war. You may not want to be in that war. But the fact is that war exists, and you're in it because they are waging it. And they will tell you straight out they're not waging it. They'll play games with language. I'm telling you right now, they are waging a war. The left is waging a war. And Republicans, conservatives, Tea Partiers, libertarians, all of us need to be working together to stop this crap. Now, that said, the way they do it, remember I said earlier, divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. This is another way to divide and conquer. They're doing it racially. They're doing it, sexual lifestyle-wise, whatever you want to call it, economically, economic classes, and so on and so forth. That's how they do it. They set groups against each other and then come in to save us from each other because we're all killing each other off and we're all fighting, and only government can solve what they created.
Yeah, it's quite a racket if you can get it.
Well, and here's the other thing that really, really burns me up about this issue. This nation was founded on religious freedom. You go to any textbook, even the secular progressive ones, and they'll tell you in the northern colonies, the Pilgrims and the Puritans and all those groups came to America specifically for religious freedom. Religious freedom is one of the cornerstones of our society. But see, what happens when you start ripping cornerstones out?
Eventually the structure collapses.
Eventually the structure collapses. They're not just going after, trying to get freedom for homos or gays or whatever they want to call themselves. I don't even know anymore. Metrosexual, hipster, or something. It's not about that. It's about destroying the cornerstones of the foundation of the United States to destroy it so that they can build it up into what they want. Utopianism. Founding fathers were aware of this stuff. That's why they gave us such a solid foundation. And that foundation is founded upon liberty, founded upon religious freedom, founded upon the right to keep and bear arms, founded upon all the other freedoms, the God-given rights that we were given, founded upon a limited government, founded upon the states having a voice in the system. All of these are cornerstones of this structure. And they're eliminating them one by one. And what happens after they eliminate them all? Will they be happy? Will they be done? No. It never ends. The envelope is always being pushed. And right now it's homosexuality. And it's like I tell people all the time. Last year in Australia, there was a judge that said that incest is okay because we have abortion. In Germany, bestiality brothels are all the rage, and in Britain right now there is a push to normalize pedophilia. The envelope never stops being pushed unless it's like going down a ski slope on your skis. You're not stopping until you get to the bottom, and then even then, if there was nothing to stop you, you'd probably keep on going, unless something gets in the way to stop you. This envelope never stops until a barrier gets in the way, and bam, it stopped. We have to be that barrier.
And they know what that barrier is. They know what that barrier is, and that leads into this one additional detail of the story I want to mention, and that is a Air Force general who gave his Christian testimony. He credited God for his accomplishments in the military and referred to himself as a redeemed believer in Christ while speaking at the National Day of Prayer Task Force event earlier this month. Well, an anti-Christian zealot didn't take kindly to that. His name is Mikey Weinstein, president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. There's that monkeying around with the language again. And he took issue with General Olson's remarks. And now Weinstein, this is not just disagreeing with him. Weinstein is calling for General Olson to be severely punished. In fact, here's a direct quote. Major General Wilson should be court-martialed aggressively and very visibly brought to justice for his unforgivable crimes and transgressions, close quote. He just shared his testimony. He didn't order any of his subordinates to convert. He wasn't trying to shove his beliefs or values on anybody. He said, this is what I believe, and this is what I credit what I've accomplished to God. He shared his testimony. That's all he did. But because, and that is now an unforgivable crime and transgression. That is now a sin. It is a sin to be a Christian, whether you're a business owner, like a baker or a photographer who doesn't unconscious want to participate in a gay wedding, whether you're a military officer, God forbid if you're a politician, and pretty much anything else. In other words, it's a sin now to be a Christian, period. Remember what I said earlier about how 100,000 Christians are being martyred around the world every year, and it's coming this direction? If anybody doesn't believe that that's coming here, look at what's happening right in front of us. And in fact, really, this sums it all up, in my opinion. It is 2 Timothy chapter 3, and I quote, "But realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous," this is starting to sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen, "reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power." If that isn't the 2015 Democrat Party, I don't know what it is.
Meanwhile, and we saw this, this is actually last month, but I wanted to bring this up. There's the largest gay group in one western state is demanding that churches who follow the Bible be shut down by the government. The chairman of the Wyoming Equality posted that stunning statement on his Facebook page. When Christians reacted with outrage, a cowardly artery deleted it. Now, this gay group is demanding that Christian churches be shut down for daring to oppose gay marriage. Why? Well, your 501(c)(3) status. Now, think about this. It wasn't wrong to talk about it before until that issue was politicized, which means anything a pastor talks about, all they have to do is politicize it, and he must be silenced.
Now, remember? Oh, go ahead.
All right, here's my response. Churches, let go of your 501(c)(3). Or talk about these things and dare them to take it from you.
Oh, yeah, because they're coming for us anyway. I'm convinced this process that we are witnessing right now is going to culminate in the Great Tribulation period, when everybody will be required to get the mark of the beast, and without the mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell, and ultimately you won't be allowed to live. That's what this process is.
Whether or not that's in our lifetime, I don't know. But what is in our lifetime is that this issue is going to wind up landing Christians in jail in our lifetime, if not before the end of this presidency.
Yep, absolutely. Every time I go to church, I keep looking toward the back door because I keep one of these Sundays waiting for cops to bust in and frog march out our pastor from behind his pulpit for daring to preach the word of God.
Let me give you a quote from Janet Porter, who's a fundamental marriage act. I'm telling you that if the court dares to issue another Roe v. Wade, in this case the Roe v. Wade for marriage, we will not obey it. We'll go to jail if we have to go to jail, but we will not bow to this agenda and violate our beliefs in God. It's happening in the state of Idaho. They're going after pastors in Idaho right now and saying, unless you participate in a homosexual wedding, we're going to put you in jail. Now, think about it for a second. What state? Idaho, one of the most conservative states in the union. That's where they're attacking. They always hit you hardest where you're at. Porter was referring to the case of Coeur d'Alene, in which the owners of a for-profit wedding chapel filed a lawsuit claiming that they could face decades of jail time for refusing to perform same-sex marriages, which did not turn out, which some are saying was not true. It depends on how you look at the story. And this isn't the first time that Porter has warned that the advances of LGBT equality or claim for equality will land Christians in jail. In 2009, Porter warned that an LGBT inclusive, of course, I think that list of letters now, it's like 8 letters long,
I know, it keeps growing all the time.
Yeah. I think it ends with a Q now, for queer.
It does.
But anyway, hate crimes law would send pastors to prison for biblical positions of speech, a prediction that nearly 6 years later has not yet come to pass. That doesn't mean it won't. I think that we're going to start seeing this stuff possibly within a couple of years, but definitely within our lifetime. Now, what's interesting about this is I was saying, and I have been saying all along, this is an issue that's going to wind up putting Christians in jail for daring to be Christians. And that pastors are going to be ordered to oversee gay weddings. And there used to be a commenter on politicalpistachio.com named Tom who said, "Oh, come on, you're nuts. That'll never happen." He's also the one that told me that the Democrats under Obama didn't have any interest in gun control. And on both counts, buddy, you were wrong.
Well, this is how I concluded my Boy Scout surrendering to the gay lobby on Gay Scout Mass. This is how I concluded that post. And thus it comes down to one simple, straightforward question. In fact, the same question Walter Donovan posed to Indiana Jones in the Grail Chamber. It's time to ask yourself what you believe. Robert Gates urges unsustainable compromise. But if the Boy Scouts of America or any Christian church, any believer, you understand this, if we can no longer exist in the United States of America as believers in Jesus Christ standing on the Bible, then it's either time to close the church doors or fight what they're trying to inflict upon us to the bitter end.
And I've been trying to
dead bodies and so many viewers.
Yeah, I've been trying to encourage the churches and the pastors to get into this fight. Franklin Graham is finally starting to verbalize a few things when it comes to protecting our faith. And let's go back to the beginning. This nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. That is one of the cornerstones of the foundation that holds up the structure of the American system. And you don't believe me? Read the Declaration of Independence. You don't believe me? Read the Constitution. It's all there. Mm-hmm. Our system was based on a very wise model that you can go back to Deuteronomy and find. In Deuteronomy, the Israelis and the Mosaic system had different branches of government. They had representative government. They had innocence until proven guilty and things like that that we have adopted for ourselves. We also have adopted those very same principles from the Saxon system, which once again was influenced by the Protestant system. So this is who we are. This is what we are. We're not the authoritarian Roman Empire that was south of the English-speaking nations. This is a part of a system that was created based on liberty and non-authoritarianism, based on limited government, God-given rights. That is the foundation of our system. And if we turn our back on that, we're done. Simple as that. And I won't, because here's the thing. I am so sick and tired of the fatalists out there. Well, there's nothing we could do. It's over. When you have no hope, you have no America. And see, Obama understood the power of hope. That's why he used hope and change. But his hope was a false hope. My hope is to restore this republic. And if we don't, let's at least be Cicero and create a foundation, a model for a future generation to pull it out of the muck. And at worst, let's at least be resisting evil, because we're not willing to resist evil. We are just as guilty as the evildoers.
If you don't resist it, you become complicit in it. In fact, there's an expression I was just reading yesterday. How did that go? It was something Alexander Solzhenitsyn once said. He said, "Let the lie come into the world. Let it even triumph, but we will not let it, or do not let it triumph through me, through you. Don't be complicit in it. If the other side is going to win, then let them at least earn it."
Hear, hear. All right, story number 7: distractions to tyranny. These are things to distract you, get you to not realize that tyranny is on the horizon here. And understand something about tyrants. And this goes for Obama. This goes for tyrants in history. Tyrants don't know they're tyrants. From their point of view, they don't
think they're tyrants. Yeah.
No, from their point of view, they're doing what's best for the common good. Now that said, one of those distractions is Obama. Once again, the real enemy is climate change. You know, science by consensus, and the manipulation of records.
Well, this is not the first time he said that.
This is old news, but it's very fascinating because it's like he keeps rolling the dice, hoping it'll stick.
But the choice of words. I mean, he called it. He didn't. In fact, this time he doubled down on it. He built upon it. He didn't just call climate change a national security threat. He called it not just the national security threat. He called it an imminent national security threat. Imminent. Now, folks, I know we have the most intelligent audience in the Alpha Quadrant, so I know that you're not hearing anything that you don't already know, but let me just reiterate it for those of you who may have forgotten. When Barack Obama declares climate change an imminent national security threat, his true enemy is capitalism. That's what it is. He's been at war with capitalism his entire adult life. That's what he was raised. I mean, it was like you've said several times of late. Barack Obama was raised in a Muslim household and by communists. So what did you think you were going to get?
Yeah, raised by Muslims and communists and smoked pot.
What do you think you're going to get? I mean, at the same time that Barack Obama is this was at the U.S. Coast Guard commencement ceremony that he said this lunatic doggerel, madness, delusional tribe, blatant lie. At the same time, he's declaring global warming, climate change to be the imminent national security threat. he's got his version of Joseph Goebbels, Josh Earnest, going out before the White House press corps and declaring that what is happening in Iraq right now, vis-a-vis the Islamic State, they took Ramadi last weekend. They're overrunning the country. And Josh Earnest went out there before the White House press corps the other day and declared that the Obama policy in Iraq, fighting the Islamic State, allegedly, is an unqualified success. He called it a success. I mean, you had Jonathan Karl of ABC News doing his Jim Carrey in the Mask expression. His jaw just hit the floor. He said, "What? A success? We're losing Ramadi. We've lost Fallujah. Baghdad is about to be besieged by the Islamic State, and this is a success?"
In his mind, it's a success. He wants Islam to advance.
Exactly. I mean, I felt like they should have that if Jonathan Karl can do a Jim Mora impression, that would have been the time to do it. You know, playoffs. You talking about playoffs? Playoff success? So you're talking about and you're exactly right. It is entirely successful once you understand that Barack Obama is not really fighting the Islamic State. It is the classic phony war. You remember that the phony war reference from early in World War II when the British and French declared war on Nazi Germany after Hitler invaded Poland, but then just sat there and didn't do anything. They called it the Sitzkrieg. And this is the 21st century equivalent of it.
Well, you want to talk phony war also, you know, you can go back to the movie Wag the Dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was and that had an ulterior motive as well, interestingly enough.
They always do.
The other shiny distraction is highlighted another objective of Operation Jade Helm. Now, of course, we've talked about Operation Jade Helm here on Saturday Afternoon Extravaganza. You know, it's the training exercise, quote unquote, that will be taking place in the American Southwest, specifically in red state and areas at red states and red state enclaves in blue states, like the before mentioned Gibbs Pocket. In which supposedly the point is to train U.S. soldiers, U.S. Special Forces, in infiltrating enemy countries. But in the meantime, the language of the operation specifically refers to enemy areas, enemy populations. And now, in fact, this apparently it also includes let me see if I can find this here. Yeah, here it is. It is an operation to train federal military on how to confront domestic civil uprisings here in the United States. Marines at a mock containment camp for American civilians in the middle of the day in a park right in the center of Yuma, Arizona. Clearly, this is a training scenario aimed at preparing Marines for conflicts on American soil with American citizens, Americans behind fences demanding food and water, saying they have rights and trying to escape. This is the kind of exercise that's going to be taking place starting in July, 2 months of 8-week exercise. This is what the exercise is about. It's not about infiltrating other countries. It's about, well, declaring martial law. This will be Barack Obama. And rather than using domestic law enforcement as a civilian national security force, Barack Obama is just going to drop any pretense he might ever have had and just going to use the U.S. military to do it directly.
Now, Jasmine, before you go on to stories 6 and 5, Alex is here. He has his he had a headset on a second ago. He's got a microphone that's on and hot and ready to roll. Let's make sure it's hot and ready to roll because go ahead.
All right.
Can you hear him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Alex.
What's happening, dude?
Oh, everything's happening. Everything's happening.
Okay, and the reason why is because I need to remove myself from the show for the next 10, 15 minutes so I can do some proper preparation for Constitution Radio at the top of the hour. So how about you and Alex finish off stories 6 and 5, and then we'll do 4, 3, 2, and 1 later on Constitution Radio.
Well, that sounds like a plan. So let's just throw a little bump in here.
Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs has come to KMET. Listen live Saturdays at 1 p.m. right here on KMET 1490 AM.
And that's a mere 20 minutes away, ladies and gentlemen, on KMET1490am.com, KMET 1490 Smart Talk Radio on your AM dial in the Southern California Inland Empire area. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Now, let's take a look at story number 6. Now, story number 6 is not that long of a story. It's just something I saw yesterday, and I thought, well, this is right on schedule. Older, sicker Obamacare patients lead insurers in a number of U.S. states to seek huge 2016 rate hikes. Well, I never get tired of saying, I told you so. How about you, Alex?
Well, I know you never get tired of that.
There's so many opportunities. Oh, if it's possible to get tired of saying I or we told you so to the vast unwashed lumpen proletariat, especially the 62 million numbnuts who elected and reelected Barack Obama, we're going to find out.
Well, we've got a sea change in my neighborhood. For decades, I have been warning people about the communist takeover that is going on, and they're not watching. And you get the usual guffaws and yeah, there he goes again. But now when I tell them that, I swear they're saying, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's gone too far. Yesterday, the guy across the street who's always grumpy and negative, he started in with his own rant, sounded just like me.
He just didn't have it in the same mental context. But, I mean, he can see it. I mean, I think a lot, and Doug talks about this a lot, that a lot of Americans know instinctively that something is horribly, horribly wrong, but they've never been provided the context for understanding why it's wrong. And that, of course, is why we do what we do.
Excuse me, I always go in for metaphors. That's the way my mind works.
Parables.
And, somewhat. The one that comes to mind is German Wings, where those poor people sat in the airplane, and it finally dawned on them that they were going to die, but it was already too late. And that's kind of the situation that we're dealing with here. People are waking up, but Obama's got another year and a half to start a race war and declare martial law. When that happens, it's all over.
Well, and it's already happening with Obamacare, has been for past year and a half since it went into full implementation. And it's amazing how quietly this is happening. In New Mexico, Healthcare Service Corporation is seeking an average jump in premiums for next year, a one-year jump, 51.6%, according to the Wall Street Journal. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, they're looking for a 36.3% increase, while CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield in Maryland has asked for a 30.4% increase. Now, all this is happening because it doesn't, it's easy to start to get a big head about, well, we told you. Well, it's not that difficult to figure out. If you declare something to be free, what's going to happen? You're going to goose demand to the stratosphere. Supply can't keep up. What happens then? The price goes up.
Mort Saul famously said, if you think health care is expensive now, wait till it's free.
Wait till it's free. It's not bending the cost curve down. It was never going to do that, and it was never about that. It's about driving the cost curve up, making health care more and more expensive, And see, this is where the individual mandate incentives comes in, because everybody said at the time, we all warned about this, that if you make first of all, the individual mandate is unconstitutional no matter what John Roberts says, but if you make the individual mandate penalty, it's a fine, it's not a tax, but even if you want to call it a tax, if you make that less expensive than the premium, then people, employers will just dump their employees into Medicaid or into the Obamacare exchanges, and individuals simply will pay the fine and not buy insurance. And so then what happens then? All you get is the influx of old and sick. It drives up the cost of premiums. And people will either not be able to afford the premiums, which will send the private health insurance market spiraling down the drain, or private insurance carriers will just pull out of states altogether, and so people won't have any place else to go except Medicaid, which is the de facto single payer. So all this was easily predictable, and it was set up to work that way. And it's happening very quietly, except, of course, here on Saturday Afternoon Extravaganza, right before our very eyes. And, if there's a punchline to that, it's that nobody can tell me that socialists don't understand how capitalism works.
Well, I spent my adult life making sure that I got opportunities to talk to communists, to talk to the enemy, to read their stuff, to listen to their tapes. And what I constantly encountered was that the first move was health care. By everybody has to have it. Everybody is dependent on it for their lives, for their health. And when you put it in the charge of the government has to know everything about you. There is no longer privacy. And it just a solution for a million commie problems.
And just to make sure we have enough time to get this in, story number 5, Hillary derailment, Jeb Bush following after. Now, everybody ought to know by now, if it's been obvious to me for, over a decade, that La Clinton Nostra, as I refer to them, and House Bush are joined at the hip. That probably goes back to the 1992 election. I mean, the Bushes don't ever recognize the Democrats are the enemy. They're just our colleagues, our friends across the aisle, and so on and so forth. Well, thing is, both of them, in this case, in the persons of Hillary Rodham Clinton and Jeb Bush, are not going anywhere. They just don't realize it yet. You got Hillary desperately trying to pretend to move even further and further and further left. And I say pretend in the sense that, she's so phony by this time that nobody believes she really stands for anything except her own power and her own bank account. But she's desperately trying to regain her left-wing extremist cred to stave off being submarined by another progressive whom the nutroots truly believe in, and that, of course, being Elizabeth Warren, Massachusetts Democrat senator. So you have her trying to desperately lurch to the left to try to preempt Pocahontas. You've got also Mrs. Clinton preemptively picking her running mate in 2016, which would be one Julian Castro, the former mayor of San Antonio and the current Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, and the next great minority hope of the Democrat Party. Remember when he gave the keynote address at the 2012 Democrat Convention, ladies and gentlemen? And then you got all the continued falderall with the email scandal and Hillary's email server, and now the State Department has been ordered by a federal judge to release the emails, which, by the way, remember, these are the emails that Hillary vetted and declared suitable for public release. She was just going to release them all at once next January, but now she's got the State Department will be releasing them in dribs and drabs throughout the year, but it'll produce the same end.
Well, this $26 million discrepancy in her tax returns is just another bomb going off. It seems to me that and I'm not entirely sanguine on this because what the Democrats have done is marched themselves into a blind canyon. This woman, I don't think even the brainwashed American people can elect this bitch, and as a consequence, I'm sorry, but she is bitch from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head. You look it up in the encyclopedia. Bitch, there's her picture.
That's why I have the Hillary Clinton update theme that I do. Eric Cartman singing that Hillary's a bitch and the biggest bitch in the whole wide world, and blah, 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 and then that.
But what are they left with besides? What are they left with strategically besides race war and declaring martial law? It becomes their only alternative, and that's not a happy result.
Well, I think I'm of the firm opinion that just like in 2008, the Democrat base, they learned back in 2004. Remember when they went for John Kerry instead of Howard Dean? Their hearts were with Howard Dean, but they decided that Kerry will be more electable, and then we saw how that turned out. The nut roots decided never again would they make that mistake, and they didn't. In 2008, Hillary was the establishment candidate, and Barack Obama was the great minority hope, hard left ideologue, and so they went with their hearts. Obama won. They're going to do the same thing with Elizabeth Warren over Hillary Clinton this year, because Hillary Clinton is in a weaker position this time than she was in 2008. I don't care how much money she raises. But the punchline to all this, I love this. When I saw this the other day, I said, that just figures. Would you believe, ladies and gentlemen, that just last year, one of Jeb Bush's Common Core education organizations paid Hillary Clinton $225,000 to give a speech before them? I got the picture at politicalpistachio.com. There's Jeb Bush introducing Hillary Rodham Clinton. Joined at the hip. That's not just a metaphor, folks. That is the God's honest truth.
Well, one of the things that
we got like 10 seconds.
It describes me to some of the neighbors as the right wing kook is I keep saying that that so many of the communists from the Progressive Party and Wallace and 1948 and all that, they have infiltrated the Democratic Party to the point where the Democratic Party can only nominate communists.
Constitution Radio.
Our records indicate that you've been lied to. Listen to the truth. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on KMET.
Said yes to a referendum legalizing same-sex marriage.
This decision makes every citizen equal, and I believe that it will strengthen the institution of marriage for all existing and for all future marriages.
Prime Minister Enda Kenny. The NSA beginning to wind down its collection and storage of phone records after the Senate adjourned without deciding whether to change or extend the program. President Obama urging Americans to remember the military on Memorial Day. Republicans say he should back a defense authorization that gives them the benefits they deserve and the resources they need to do their jobs. You're listening to ABC News.
Did you know that select musical tones have the power to heal? By listening to 7 amazing songs that contain these tones, you can experience the power of music therapy.
I used to work in a pretty stressful atmosphere, but I started using the whole tones in the office, and I'm experiencing more focus, motivation, peace, and better relationships.
44wholetones.com is a unique music therapy program featuring 7 secret ancient healing frequencies uncovered in the music of King David. Now you too can unlock the healing secrets of the Bible, as we are offering a free sample of this music so that you can discover their power to heal, relieve stress, and break negative cycles.
I use the tones to calm my 5, 3, and 2-year-olds to stop the fighting, and it works.
Now you can experience the healing music therapy in the comfort of your own home or office. Visit 44wholetones.com and get a free song. Visit 44wholetones.com today for your free song. That's 44wholetones.com. 44wholetones.com.
Authorities in Missouri say a man suspected in the fatal shooting of his ex-girlfriend and her teenage son has been shot and killed, the Henry County Sheriff said. Law enforcement officials killed James Barton Jr. today. He had been missing since late April when Sandra K. Sutton escaped her home and told police that he'd been keeping her in a wooden crate. Hitting the road this summer, a maker of doggy treats says there's no reason to leave your 4-footed friends behind.
Most dogs are thrilled just to be in the car with their humans. The window lowered just enough to get some wind in the face. Milkbone, the dog biscuit company, has surveyed cities for their dog friendliness. The most pet-friendly hotels and restaurants, parks, and landmarks. Topping the list, the original dog beach in San Diego, one of the first leash-free beaches in the country. Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, is second. Fort Tryon Park, New York City, ranks third. The National Mall in Washington is 23rd. Arlington National Cemetery, believe it or not, 24th on the list. Joan Bennett, ABC News.
Police in Washington state say they won't take action for a woman who has chained herself to the Arctic Challenger, a support ship for Royal Dutch Shell's exploratory oil drilling plans. Police in Bellingham say officers talked to the captain of the ship, the port, and the woman. The ship isn't due to leave for several days. This is ABC News.
More Americans turn to ABC's Good Morning America. So how do you get to be America's #1 morning show? Well, it helps to know what you want in the morning. And we know. Take it from Robin Roberts.
You want the news. You want it fast, first, and right on point.
Take it from George Stephanopoulos.
You want breaking news, news-making exclusives.
Take it from Lara Spencer.
We know. You want it all now.
So go on. Tell them, Robin.
Put some good in your morning.
With ABC's
Good Morning America.
Good Morning America.
Good Morning America.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Spring is in the air, but most parents' minds are on summer, especially summer kids camps. These days, there are many options to choose from, but few will have the campers interacting with rare and exotic wildlife like the camps at both the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. The enthusiastic staff at both sites know kids as well as they do animals, and the result is a variety of hands-on, join-in, be a part of fun for young kids, tweens, and teens. For more information, call 619-718-3000. That's 619-718-3000.
And welcome once again. It is Saturday afternoon, which means it's time for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Welcome to the radio program. You can listen on the air at 1490 AM or online at KMET1490am.com. you can call in. And you know what? We don't get callers very often in this program, but I want to encourage you to call in today because I've been on my soapbox all day. If you were listening to American Daily Review, I had a few soapbox rants going on. I want to hear what you think about that. 951-922-3532, 951-922-3532 to call into the radio program here on KMET 1490 AM. If you get a busy signal, that just means that somebody else is waiting to be on the air, and just wait until they're off and then try again. And we have plenty to talk about, as we always do. Jazz Miss is with me from the state of Washington, Skyping in from up there in the great Northwest, where there's a team that had done well one year, and then the next year became the butt of every joke. I can't remember the name of that team. The Lady Hawks. What's that?
Well, actually, that was Daryl Bevel. And apparently he still has a job, so we'll see what happens this year.
And then to my right, obviously to my right, is Alex Ferguson in studio with me. Alex, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good day to you, Doug.
Now, you've got a book of the week this week. I'm jazzed for you to talk about. You've talked about it before. I've got a stack of books here that I'm going to be showing you after the program. Let me tell you, I keep Alex working. I keep him occupied. He does a lot of reading, but I think you're learning something while you're at it, right?
I've spent dozens of hours on each one of these books, and that's the truth. I'm dedicated to getting it right.
And handling the soundboard over here in the studio, to my left, although he's to my right, politically, would be Glenn. He's welcome to speak up if he wants to. He doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. Hey, Glenn, how you doing?
Great, Doug. Good to see you again. Another Saturday.
Yeah. And then at the studio we've got Sean. Sean, as always, a pleasure to work with. Now,
what about Gabby Hayes? He's been in here asking for a little attention, a little plug of chaw tobacco. He's not asking much.
Is that Gabby Hayes or Grandpa Simpson?
He thinks I'm in a good mood, and therefore he could pull that stuff off today. So,
Well, you're always in a good mood.
Little does he know.
Grandpa Simpson is one of them whippersnappers. He's young as springtime.
Now, if you're listening worldwide at KMET1490am.com, if you hit the KMET TV tab, you can actually watch us do the program. One of the panes will have all of me and about half of Alex, and the other pane will have in bright green color with the colorful books behind him, Jazz Miss, and a few boxes flexing for the camera. All right, now. Top of the hour, top of the story, top story. Yeah, that's what we want to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about as always. But I want to talk about, and you did a great job at this on American Daily Review. American Daily Review, the show before the show, blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. You talked about this because I was having my own reasons I couldn't, and you did a great job from what I heard. But we want to talk about Article 1, Section 7, the congressional power of purse strings. This is our Constitution Corner, top of the hour, top of the show, should I say, item to discuss. And let me explain real quick what that's about. Because, see, what happens when it comes to the Constitution is there are certain powers delegated to certain parts of government. The federal government has certain authorities delegated to it, and then from there, it depends on which branch gets what. When it comes to the ability to make law, legislative powers, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress. That's Article 1, Section 1. And of those, there's two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And here's the way Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1 reads. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. In other words, if it has to do with money, it has to start with the House. Now, here's why this is important. This is something you may or may not have covered. I don't know because I didn't listen to the whole thing, Jazz Miss. But this is where it's important. Prior to 1913, prior to the 17th Amendment, the House of Representatives was the voice of the people. The Senate was the voice of the states. The House has the power of the purse strings. So what does that mean? That means the people have the power of the purse strings. And to me, the power of the purse strings is the strongest authority in the federal government, because no matter what anybody else does in government, if there's no money, you can't do it. No money, no war. No money, no Obamacare, or so forth. So the people have the power to starve programs they don't like of money through this. Now, this is very important because once somebody asked me, Doug, what do you think of the government shutdown, and what did you think that the founding fathers would have thought of it? They gave it to us as a tool. They would have congratulated us for it. The problem is we've got about as much intestinal fortitude as an earthworm.
Yeah, pretty much is what I had to say about it.
Now, Alex, what do you think about that? We have the power of the purse strings, but yet we're afraid to use it because everybody's been convinced.
Cojones are in short supply.
This is true. Well, we've been convinced that if government shuts down, nothing will get done.
I don't understand. I mean, seriously, I understand what the Democrats are doing. It's pretty clear, but I don't understand the motivation of the Republicans. They make all these promises that they're going to stand up for us and they're going to fight, and they get into position and they just completely turn tail and go whining and squealing away. I don't understand it.
You're listening to Constitution Radio right here on KMET. I am Douglas V. Gibbs. You can look me up at douglasvgibbs.com. And on Thursday, I went out to the desert, out there in Palm Desert, and I spoke to the Riverside County Republican Party. And there's a lot of these people were the leadership in the party. And I hope a lot of them are listening. And because I was kind of stunned because the Republican Party tends not. And when I say Republican Party, I don't mean Republicans in general, but the leadership tends not to be real fond of me because I'm quite conservative. I'm one of those crazy constitutionalists who actually thinks the original intent of the Constitution means something. And so I gave my speech, which was a little bit about the Constitution, a little bit about executive orders, and for lack of a better way of putting it, I had to pause afterwards so that I could allow the people to pick their jaws up off of the ground. A lot of these people had never heard this kind of stuff before. But what was stunning to me is afterwards, I couldn't talk to enough people. They were coming to me in droves to talk to me, buy my books. They were excited because, holy cow, someone brought them information they were not aware of. Now, going back to those Republicans you're frustrated with, are they willfully going against the Constitution, or are they so uneducated about the Constitution they just don't understand? They don't realize the power they have and that the power the people have and the states have or should have.
I think that they have given up on the Constitution, that we have strayed so far from the actual words in the document. When they said to Nancy Pelosi, when she was talking about health care, they said, "Is this constitutional?" And she says, "Is it what?" And then she laughed. The Constitution is becoming a laughingstock among our polls.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
In fact, she said, "Are you serious?" Like it's like what I mentioned earlier at the end of American Daily Review about the Jim Morrow moment. Playoffs? You're talking play? She said that's what she was saying. Constitution? You're talking about the Constitution? We're not going to let that get in the way.
It's become an irrelevant factor.
Now, one of the things I talked to this Republican Party about was executive orders. That's what they had asked me to come out to talk about. And I only got like 20 minutes, which is, a hiccup to me because you know how long I could talk. As my son once said to me when I was going to have a 2-hour radio program back in 2007, he said, "Dad, you going to find enough to say for 2 hours?" Find enough not to say is not the problem. It's whether or not they shut me up after 2 hours is up. But anyway, so executive orders, and it's like I was explaining to them. It's not that executive orders are unconstitutional. It's how they're being used. George Washington issued executive orders. The Thanksgiving Proclamation was an executive order. When you see throughout history executive orders, National Day of Prayer, whatever, it doesn't have it's not legally binding. So the National Day of Prayer didn't require everybody to pray. It's a proclamation. That's what executive order is supposed to be: is either a proclamation or an adjustment inside the executive branch. That's all it's supposed to be for. But what we've got is this gentleman in the White House who is using executive orders to modify law. And Article 1, Section 1, I mentioned it earlier. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress. All legislative powers belong to Congress, period. And if you go through the first 3 articles of the Constitution, Article 1 says that all legislative powers belong to Congress. Article 2 says that the executive power belongs to the President. And Article 3 says the judicial power belongs to the Supreme Court and the inferior courts. That is separation of powers. They're not supposed to mix and mingle those powers.
I don't understand why the Republicans are so hesitant to turn to the courts. The courts back them every time there's a decision. This guy is clearly unconstitutional. He's clearly usurping power of the legislature and of the judiciary, and yet they won't even do that. We need to get him out in the primary election.
Well, and this illustrates the fact, and it's one of the 25 myths of the United States Constitution by Douglas V. Gibbs, available at CreateSpaceAnd.com and Amazon.com. But the first myth, the co-equal branches of government, they're not supposed to be co-equal. There's a reason why Congress's powers, legislative powers, are laid out in Article 1, then the executive in Article 2, then the judiciary in Article 3. So the Republican, and that gets back to the whole idea of judicial review. That Republicans have been, even otherwise conservative Republicans have been indoctrinated with the idea of judicial review, and the courts are the gatekeepers of the Constitution. And so rather than use the legislative powers the Constitution provides, conservatives, even conservative Republicans, are always turning to the courts, the states suing the federal government rather than just nullifying.
Well, we had 28 states sue the federal government over Obamacare. And they went through a federal court with federal judges paid by federal money. How'd they think it was going to turn out?
The proverbial fox guarding the chicken coop.
Yeah. Judicial review is simply a backdoor for the statists to create an oligarchy, and they've done it.
Right. Well, and see, this is nothing new, because the statists, Federalist Party, the party of John Adams, because he was the only president that was a Federalist, they were nationalists compared to the laissez-faire Jeffersonians. And so when Jefferson won in 1800, and they lost, and the Federalists lost the House, they lost the Senate, they retreated to the courts. John Marshall and John Adams is known for, right before Jefferson was inaugurated, for his his appointing these midnight judges, just stacking the courts with as many Federalist judges as they could. So this is nothing new. From the very beginning, statists were trying to do things to the court because they know they can't do it politically, because they can't win in the arena of ideas. They lose in the arena of ideas because the people smell a rat when they see it, and they will not accept it. Therefore, it has to be forced upon the people, but for your own good, by the ruling elite through the courts. That's what they do. So it's nothing new. And judicial review, let me say this about judicial review. Think about this for a moment, folks. Judicial review allows the federal court system to decide whether or not a law is constitutional. You've heard it before. Oh, that law is going to go to the Supreme Court to see if it's constitutional or not. Okay, well, to decide if a law is constitutional is to decide if the federal government has that authority. Now, remember, federal courts are part of the federal government. What that means is the federal government's deciding for itself what its own authorities are. Now, how is that limited government? How is it? Now, that said, I'm glad we're kind of talking about judicial review, because the Constitution Quest question of the week is about the judicial branch. And I'm going to ask it right now, and then when we come back after break, we're all going to discuss the answer. You have one more thing you want to say?
I'd like to say that worse than that is that the judicial review, even if you accept it, needs to evaluate the law in relation to what the Constitution says. And when you talk about abortion, the Constitution is silent, and they still determine what the Constitution says, which is just wholly nonsense.
Well, it's a state issue, and what happened is a federal court came in and overturned a state law on a state issue. Is what happened. And it's very, very dangerous.
No wonder people
here's
don't
the
respect
Constitution Quest game question of the week. First ad, by the way, that you're going to listen to is from Constitution Quest. Put Doug in the discount box for your discount. All right, here it comes. ConstitutionQuest.com for the game. All right, here we go. Ready? This is the question. Don't answer yet. We'll give the answer after the break. A person is convicted of impeachment by a vote of what margin? A, a simple majority, B, 2/3 majority, or C, 3/4 majority? We're going to discuss the answer when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Where's my copy?
Check us out online at KMET1490am.com.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
Hey, do you know about the USA? Do you know about the government? Can you tell me about the Constitution? Hey, learn about the USA.
The Constitution is the instruction booklet for taking back the country. Douglas V. Gibbs.
1787, I'm told our founding fathers did agree to write a list of principles for keeping people free. The USA was just starting out.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the business's advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
And welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs right here on KMET 1490 AM in the Pass area and throughout the Inland Empire and desert communities and worldwide. Isn't that great? We're worldwide. The local show with a global footprint right there at KMET 1490 AM.com and go to the KMET TV tab to watch us do the show. You know, it's funny saying KMET because I grew up listening to KMET. KMET was the local rock station. And being on KMET, I guess the station got those call letters later. But every time I talk about being on KMET, folks that are my age or close to it, they say, "You're on the rock station? Is it still around?" No, it hasn't been around for like 30 years, but but it is a talk station, and its lineup just got better. I'm here. Okay. Oh, by the way, there's a host out in the desert named Elise Richmond who does a show out there, and I got a chance to spend some time with her husband, as a matter of fact, recently, and he's quite an interesting fellow out there at the Republican Party event, and I'm excited to get to know those groups out there. The desert area, man, I tell you, there's a lot of patriots out there. Okay, here's the question from the Constitution Quest board game, constitutionquest.com, right off of one of the game cards. Here's the question, judicial branch. Sean, do you have your thinking cap on? Are you ready for this one?
Yes, I am.
All right, here's the question. A person is and see, I gave you guys a whole break now to think about this. I'm wondering, How many of you were thumbing through the Constitution looking for the answer? All right, a person is convicted of impeachment by a vote of what margin? A simple majority, B, 2/3 majority, or C, a 3/4 majority? What do you think, Sean?
I'm going to go C on this one.
C, 3/4 majority. Okay, Alex, what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2/3.
You're going to go with 2/3, B, 2/3. Glenn, you want to jump in on this? Since you're here, we might as well force you to participate. He's kicking and screaming right now. A person convicted of impeachment by a vote of what? It is convicted of impeachment by a vote of what margin? A, a simple majority, B, 2/3 majority, or C, a 3/4 majority?
I'm going to say 2/3 because I believe it takes 3/4 of the states to ratify and amend the Constitution. But I am guessing.
Okay, so you think it's 2/3. Okay, and you think the 3/4 there just to throw you off a little. Okay, Jasmius, you usually get these right. Now, you have fouled up a couple times, but it's rare. So that's why I save you for last. Okay, what do you think?
B.
B, 2/3 majority. So we've got, let's see, so we got Sean said 3/4, right? And everybody else is 2/3. Is that what we got going here? Sean, I hate to say it, but you're wrong, buddy. 2/3 majority. 2/3 majority. Now, here's something fascinating. One of the choices was a simple majority. Notice that this is something I try to explain to people. We are not a democracy as it is. We have representatives. But even with them, except on when it comes to just approving bills, nothing is really a simple majority. It's always a 2/3 or a 3/4. It's always bigger numbers. And when it comes to a jury, well, gosh, it takes a unanimous conviction. But when it comes to impeachment, it takes 2/3 majority of which house?
House of Representatives.
No, Senate. The House impeaches, in other words, they bring the charges, but the hearing goes before the Senate. Now, why is this important? Why do you think, Alex? Why is that difference important?
Well, you get both bodies chiming in and participating.
Okay. Well, the first body, the House, they're the ones that bring the charges, but the second House does the hearing. So that sounds like they're like the Senate would be the more important House. From this point of view, from this time period, why would they be the more important House or more capable of having a hearing?
I don't know.
Because, and see, this is a learning moment. I want the whole audience listening because this is for a chance for you to learn. Right now, as far as we're concerned, there's not really much difference between the House and the Senate. There's no difference. I mean, they're voted in by the popular vote, and they're ideologically nuts. But back before 1913, before the 17th Amendment, the Senate was the voice of the states. These were the more polished politicians. They've been in the system longer, and also their actions were based on what was best for their state, not ideology. And so if impeaching the president was best for the states, then those are the people you want holding the hearing, right?
Well, why would they change that?
That is a very good question. Progressivism. It happened during the Progressive era. That happened the same year as the 16th Amendment, which is income tax, and the same year as the Federal Reserve Act. So it tells you something right there. And it removed, because the states are an obstacle to statism. The states being individual and unique and being an extra check and balance involved, and what's best for the states, because statism is not best for the sovereignty of the states. So the state's voice being in there is an obstacle to statism.
Okay, I got you.
And now we've got, matter of fact, the number one story we'll get to later on is another way of trying to remove the states from the process. And before we get to that, you've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes for the book of the week. And this is a book he'd actually read before, so he got a chance to go through it a second time. 5 minutes, and I'm going to hold you to this 5 minutes because we've got a lot to talk about today.
Okay, the reason...
make sure you tell everybody the title, the author, and all that, too.
The reason I've read it before is because it was written by a friend of ours, John Hancock. Oh, it's kind of a strange name, isn't it? It's called Liberty Inherited, The Untold Story of America's Exceptionalism. Now, what he starts off with is that liberal and what these people who call themselves liberal today actually are and do, they don't jibe. It doesn't make any sense. he harkens back to classical liberalism. And the four principles of that are limited government, individual rights, free markets, and private property. Now, once the liberals usurped and stole and hijacked the title of liberals, classical liberalism started to be removed from the nation's history and our political dialogue. In other words, not only did they want to take the name of it, but they wanted to stamp it out. And this is to the point where even in Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples, the books have been edited and modified to take out the references to this classical liberalism. And where it comes from, he says, people are always talking about where we got our ideas of government. One of the places that we for sure did was in 500 AD, the Anglo-Saxons, under two brothers that sound like they're from Norway. I got their names here somewhere. They invaded England, took over, and brought with them democratic principles.
Now, let me interrupt you just for a second. Now, I want you people to understand, these are the barbarians to the north. Remember you had the Roman Empire and the barbarians were to the north? You know what the word barbarian means? It means not Roman. These are the barbarians to the north, the Protestant barbarians to the north that were not Roman, who had a system that was not authoritarian. All right, continue, sir.
Okay, actually, barbarian. The Romans heard what they called savages speaking, and it sounded like bar 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 to them, so they called it that. But the principle of these Anglo-Saxons was that all problems should be handled by the people themselves, that they should be handled at the lowest possible level. In other words,
local governments reigns then.
Yeah, if the problem was an individual, then you settle it between individuals. If it's families, you settle it at the family level. Tribe or community, same thing. Region, and then finally nation. This is the opposite of what Obama is trying to deliver to us. And it's the only real logical way to operate, if you think about it. Now, they had a strong strain of individualism based on land ownership. All decisions in selection of leaders had to result from consensus. Everybody knew what the laws were and participated in creating them. They believed that once the laws were created, they had divine authority, not a king. It's not that it was a divine right of a monarch, but that the system that they were creating had its own divinity. Power was dispersed among the people, as was the ability to solve problems. So they operated that way very well until 1066. And of course, the one date that everybody always remembers from history class is that William the Conqueror conquered England, killed King Harold in 1066. And of course, you got Michael Moore. He's always talking about Robin Hood. Well, guess what? Robin Hood was a tax protester. He wasn't stealing the noble's property to give it to the poor. He was taking the poor's property that had already been confiscated by taxation and giving it to the poor. But what happened was that William the Conqueror brought in the European system, which was feudalism, serfdom. Nobody had any rights. Nobody had any property. Nobody was allowed to have a weapon.
1 minute.
Nobody was allowed to have a weapon. None of that. And it took hundreds of years to go through the process of what, and if I've got so little time, Hancock says that the biggest event in all of this freeing up of humanity was the glorious revolution in 1688.
Mm-hmm.
That at that time they started the process of taking the power from kings, which was and it's divine providence that England was separate from the continent, not only because we could bomb the Germans, but because they could develop a reasonable democratic system that wasn't corrupted by
without outside influence. And in 1688, the Glorious Revolution led to the Declaration of Rights of 1689.
which became the Declaration of Independence.
That was one of the inspirations of the Declaration of Independence, absolutely. Because the early Americans didn't originally fight for independency. They originally fought just to be treated as freemen. Hey, we're Englishmen, we're free Englishmen, treat us right. That was the original call, and that's the reason why the Stars and Stripes really didn't emerge until about a year after the Declaration of Independence. The first flag we were under was the Grand Union flag, or what Washington called the Continental Colors, which was the 13 stripes, but in where you now see the blue field with stars was, the British Jack, the Union Jack, which is the three crosses of the three original members of the United Kingdom.
Well, another divine coincidence, and I believe in manifest destiny, is that King Henry VIII came in at the same time that Martin Luther came in, that Protestantism took over England. And as a consequence, Protestantism is a very democratic system.
Right.
It is not top down. So the Catholics in all these other countries were dictatorial and unsuccessful because that dictatorship always leads to malfunctions.
No one's above the law, not even the king, not even the judges.
So you get the English-speaking peoples like America. We are only, he said, 5% of the world's population, but we produce more wealth than all the other countries put together. That's why when there's a disaster, America is the one that supplies the goods. We've got the goods because our people are free to create and to prosper.
We're free to innovate. Free market system. Our rights are God-given. English-speaking countries are over 90% of the inventions. Most of those coming from America. The second most coming from Britain.
Well, this is why I say that we need two more. I don't like to tell God what to do, but I would suggest to him that we need two more commandments. One of them, let's get rid of racism, of course. But the other one is we got to stop trying to control other people's lives. There seems to be some kind of a monster within people that makes them want to tell other people what to do.
If you're abiding by the first 10, that last one might not be necessary, but that's just a thought. Okay, we got more books coming up each week. Every week, Alex brings a book of the week to us. This week it was Liberty Inherited by John L. Hancock.
If you find me in the street, I got 10 more minutes to go here.
Only 10, yeah.
John Hancock is a good friend of mine. I was going to get him on today's show. Didn't get a chance to bring him on. I will be at an event on Memorial Day out in the deserts, and he and I are both going to be speaking at this event. If you go to politicalpistachio.com, I will be putting all the information about that tonight. If you want to be on the email list so that you can receive mailers that tell you about upcoming events, and also I send out articles to these folks that are on this list. Email me at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com. Okay, we got some stories to go through, and we got to go through them rapidly. But then again, that's always kind of what happens on this program. We have a lot to talk about and never enough time. Obama's trade deal, story number 4. We talked about stories 5 through 10. Really 11 earlier on American Daily Review, blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. We're going to go over the last 4 now. Obama's trade deal. This is one of the rare occasions where we agree with the Democrats and the Republicans have us scratching our heads. Obama's trade deal. I agree with Elizabeth Warren. I'm shocked on this. This trade deal, I believe in free trade, but not this kind of free trade, not where it puts America at a disadvantage, and it's really a push for globalism. And when I say it puts us at a disadvantage, well, you've done a lot of writing on this. Let me let Jasmine pop in on this, because I think he's got probably more information than I do on this. What do you think of the trade deal?
This is a rare occasion because we apparently are on the opposite sides of this issue. Now, the trade deal in question...
Oh, you don't agree with me?
Not on this occasion. It's called the Trade Promotion Authority Act, and it passed the Senate yesterday, 62-37. It's probably DOA in the House, so for those of you who are on the side of Senator Jeff Sessions, who led the 6 Republicans who voted against it. The other 47 voted in favor, including Ted Cruz, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of Democrats, though, were trying to stand against this.
Oh yeah, Elizabeth Warren was leading the charge against it, but really, and I've always, this has always been my stance on this. So I'm not flip flopping to try to make any kind of effect or score brownie points, and apparently it wouldn't score brownie points with you anyway. The one thing that should not have borders is economics. Capitalism should not have borders because capitalism capitalism works in exactly the opposite way of power. The more capitalism there is, the more power is decentralized, and so when you throw borders up between national economies, you get less trade, you get less economic activity, you get less prosperity. So free trade breaks down those barriers. I understand the argument.
Oh, and I love free trade, and I agree with you on all of those points. My beef is not free trade. My beef is this particular one and the way it's written. But anyway, continue.
Well, I mean the details of it probably have more. Now, I know for a fact that it's set up in much the same way as the Corker-Menendez bill on the burgeoning or impending Iran nuclear deal, in that Barack Obama or whoever the president is negotiates a trade deal. They submit it to Congress. Congress has 60 days to either say yay or nay. If they don't say anything, then the agreement goes automatically into effect.
There's no congressional power of amendment, and also Congress has to act or it goes into effect. And the way it's done, the way it's worded, it really gives this president unprecedented power when it comes to trade. I don't think Congress is involved as much as they should be. And I don't think it puts America in a good position overall. Once again, I like free trade. I think free trade's a good thing. I think capitalism is a wonderful thing. I am a capitalist. But when you've got an agreement that's negotiated behind closed doors and Congress has no capabilities of amending it, and also you're not even allowed to know what's in it until you see it, and then they can't talk about it. They've got to read it in seclusion. There's too many things wrong with this. Now, that said, basically this is NAFTA on steroids, in my opinion. That said, only because we're out of time, I don't mean to cut you off. I needed to get my word in and then go to break because we're already a couple minutes beyond starting our break. So let's go to break, and then when we come back, we still have 3 more things to talk about. But, wow, you and I disagree on something. That's fascinating because it happens rarely. We'll have to go deeper into this later. All right. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right here on Constitution Radio on KMET. The spirit of Paul Revere is alive and well and broadcasting on KMET AM 1490. Constitutionalist Douglas V. Gibbs hosts a roundtable of local citizens through local, state, and national issues every Saturday at 8 a.m. Thomas Jefferson said, "We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." So, participate. Listen to Conservative Voice Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and join Paul Revere's modern ride for liberty.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Our records indicate you've been lied to. Welcome to the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll.
And welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And off the air, we're having quite a conversation about this free trade agreement, and I just kept repeating where I stand on this is anytime you have an agreement that's agreed upon in secrecy, it's got to be read in secrecy. It limits the authorities of Congress regarding it, and it gives the president more power. It's dangerous. So there's more to it than that. That's the main things on the surface that I brought up. Now that all said, we've got to move on. I wish we could just continue talking about this, but to be honest, we're just not in that kind of timetable. All right. Second guessing Iraq. Story number 3. Chris Wallace goes code pink on Marco Rubio. And then I wrote an article called Questioning Iraq. And before you get going, here's what I want people to understand. The Republicans are being pushed in this corner on purpose. They want them to start questioning the evil Bush. Based on the you can't hindsight's 20/20. You can't go back and say, oh, well, we should have done this. See, he was wrong. Well, first of all, they're going based on what information they had at the time. Second of all, the information they had at the time was accurate.
And everybody agreed on it. Every allied intelligence agency in the world agreed. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. We got to take him out. We got to disarm him, or it'll create even bigger national security threats. Now, last Sunday, Fox News Sunday, and Chris Wallace. I mean,
who
Fox
I normally
News,
like.
I mean, he's interviewing Florida Senator Marco Rubio,
who I normally am not a big fan of.
And Rubio said, now he'd answered initially when he was asked this question previously, he gave the standard, well, if I had been president and had known then what I know now, well, I wouldn't have gone into Iraq. Well, apparently somebody got a hold of him. Maybe he was reading Political Pistachio, reading what I had to say about this, because I've been saying for 2 weeks now, presidents make decisions not with crystal balls, but with the best information they have at the time. It's called leadership. You're never going to have all the information. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Senator Rubio said. Chris Wallace asked him, well, if you had been president, knowing what you know now, will you have gone into Iraq? And Senator Rubio said, well, that's not a relevant question. President Bush made the best decision he could with the information he had. And Chris Wallace kept coming back to that. He kept re-asking the question. Well, I understand that, but if you had been president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just, I'm sure that Senator Rubio just wanted to reach over and slap Chris Wallace because he wouldn't let go of this.
The relevant question is, if you were Obama, would you have pulled all of our troops out of Iraq?
Precisely.
That's what they ought to be asking.
And, of course, they're not asking that question.
No, they're not going to ask that. They're not going to ask that because the goal is not to hurt Obama. The goal is to hurt Bush, because if Bush looks bad, that means every Republican looks bad, and that is a dewy point for the Democrats with this upcoming election.
I will tell you where the reason that they're doing this. It's not just, yes, to make Republicans look bad, and make Republicans jump through the hoops and look bad to the Republican base. But the ultimate reason that they're relitigating the Iraq war, aside from a total lack of imagination, it's that they want to make sure that if there is a Republican in 2017, that there's no way in the world they will dare take military action against the Iranians after it comes out that they now have nuclear weapons.
Well, there's also one more thing. If we've got Republicans admitting, maybe I wouldn't have gone into Iraq, then that means Iraq was a bad war. It was the evil war. And therefore, everything that Obama's been forced into doing regarding Iraq is absolved.
And Ann Coulter was saying, why do these Republicans submit to having liberals run the debates? We're going to have George Stephanopoulos run the debates, right. or Candy, what's her face? It's just ridiculous.
Andy Crowley, yeah.
Why in the world would we put up with that? And yet they march in like pigs to slaughter.
Because the Republicans are often frightened.
Well,
they don't dare stand against
Sin cojones.
Well, they don't call us the stupid party for nothing.
All right, story number 2. Fear Islam, but be silent about it and give in to Islam's demands. Is it Islamophobia or patriotism? We've got I was talking to a friend of mine who just came back from Europe, and she said that Europeans are scared out of their skulls right now. Not the leadership, the citizens. They know what's going on with the spread of Islam in Europe. Europe's going to be completely Islamic by 2050. And they know it, and they are scared out of their minds.
Angela Merkel just came up with a statement that multiculturalism doesn't work, and they're going to have to start insisting that people adopt the European cultures that they join.
Well, she's been saying that for a while, but now Cameron just, like the other day, I think yesterday or the day before, has decided they need to start now curbing immigration. They've realized that bringing all these Muslim immigrants isn't good for their country. Now, have you heard about Cameron's Prime Minister of Great Britain? Have you heard about that recently there, Jasmius?
Well, not this past week, but yeah, in the larger backdrop of this year, yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, it's either that. I mean, it's you know the expression the scales falling from the eyes. Well, it may be happening belatedly, but it's happening, and they're just pragmatically being forced to recognize that what the cultural conquest of their countries by Islam.
The Europeans have a birth rate now of like 1 or less kids per couple, and they're falling away from the Christian church all over the place. There's nothing to resist the Islamization of Europe.
It's a dying culture.
Meanwhile, in Albania, where the Muslims are the majority, or practically the majority, I think they are the majority now, the Muslim birth rate is 12 per fertile mother.
And they're doing it on
usually
purpose.
Between 8 and 12 when it comes to Muslim families.
It's not only their culture, they're doing it on purpose.
Okay, now, Constitution time. Religious freedom. Yeah, but Doug, I'm told, freedom of religion. We can't just tell them they can't. Is Islam a religion? Or is it a political ideology that wants to put a law, put their Sharia law in place of the Constitution?
It's like the communists. It's a religion. It's a economic theory. It's a political theory. It's everything wrapped up in one nasty ball.
And Islam is totally 100% reactionary. It's a reaction to Judaism. It's a reaction to Christianity. It always has been. That's why they're so aggressive. That's why they've got to conquer the world for Allah. That's why it's so militaristic. That's why it's so violent, so intolerant, because it is a reaction to what the natives of the pre-Islamic Arabian Peninsula took exception to.
Well, those of us who would like to see the Islamics less toxic are being beaten by the fact that the rest of the people are allowing them to win. If these people are winning, then those people who don't want to wipe out every Jew or wipe out every Christian, they're caught up in the flow. It's like when Hitler had his spectacular successes. Nobody could resist the winner.
Yeah, the strong horse factor.
Meanwhile, we've got our President Obama, sacrificing Israel for Iran. You've got the leader, the Mullah Khamenei in Iran saying, no, we're not going to permit any inspections of these nuclear facilities. And meanwhile, ISIS has, taken over Ramadi, Palmyra, any attempt to stop them is...
Well, look at his selection of John Kerry. The guy is a traitor. The guy is obviously a coward. Just the perfect guy to be making these decisions for us.
But more specifically, Barack Obama is sacrificing Israel in the sense of, remember, for 25 years now, they talked about the two-state solution. The Middle East peace process, two-state solution. America was brokering negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians to set up a state side by side. Well, now Barack Obama is going and working through the UN, cutting Israel out of the process, and is intent on imposing a two-state solution on Israel. Israel will no longer even be a party to it. I mean, it's straight out of the Munich agreement in 1938, where Czechoslovakia was just it was just imposed upon them. Well, we're going to take the Sudetenland away from you and give it to the Germans. I mean, it's exactly the same dynamic. And who's going to ultimately benefit from that? the Iranians because Barack Obama is trying to set up an Iranian-dominated Middle East.
And final comment on that, I asked Glenn to turn on his mic because he has something to say I think is very relevant. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I got some news for the American citizens out there. President Obama is shipping 2,000 shoulder-held missiles to Iraq, and them missiles are going to end up coming back to the United States and in the hands of ISIS because there's no American advisors or military men to keep control over them. They will be lost just like the other weapons.
All the weapons they've shipped there have disappeared and ended up in the hands of ISIS, and they keep shipping them to the Iraqi government knowing that. What does that tell us?
Yeah, that's happened in Iraq, in Syria, and Yemen.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Now, I don't want the show to be a downer, so let's not, let's understand that this can be won, this can be stopped, but it's going to take eternal vigilance with any war.
They're going to have to
and we
put
have
us
to
in
understand
charge.
that when it comes to what the left's doing, what Islam's doing, what any of these things we're talking, it's a war. And until we realize that, as conservatives, as constitutionalists, as Americans, till we realize we're in the middle of a war, we're going to continue to have these troubles, and we're going to continue to think this is all a downer. We have to understand this is a war. And story number one is the final part of this war that we're fighting, the national popular vote movement. This is an attempt to eliminate the Electoral College. Understand something about the Electoral College. And Electoral College is created in Article 1 and Article 2. It wasn't called the Electoral College until the 1800s. These electors and the way they're set up in Article 2, and it explains how, the electors are, the number of electors are supposed to be equal to the number of representatives and senators. This is a way to protect the rural states. This is a way to protect our republic and to protect us from the excesses of democracy. The difference between the power that a small state has in a popular vote and in an electoral college vote it's absolutely a massive difference. Without the Electoral College, if we continue to allow this national popular vote movement, which basically what it is states are saying, hey, our electoral votes are going to go to whoever wins the popular vote. If the popular vote eventually becomes the primary way to vote in the president, the 7 largest metropolitan areas will vote in the president and nobody else's votes will matter. There'll be no reason for presidential candidates to go to Iowa or New Hampshire or any of these other places because it won't matter. This is very dangerous. It's an attempt to eliminate the states and the rural areas, and it's an opportunity for the left to move us even closer to pure democracy, which in the end is the tyranny of the majority, and it's very dangerous. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. Jasmine, what's your comments? Got a minute.
I mean, it's been a long time coming, and it's like I say, the left, the process has been to take off the mask, be who they are. This is what they believe. And Karl Marx said it himself, that democracy is a transition stage to socialist oligarchy, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
And we're out of time. Jasmine, I'm sorry, Alex. I know Alex has something to say. Squeeze it in real quick in a few seconds. Jasmine, plug yourself.
blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, the home of the Hard Starboard Radio Network podcast, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I host it, in case you were wondering. And I write at politicalpistachio.com.
Alex, make it quick.
The left used to constantly chant power to the people, which just shows the depth of their hypocrisy. Everything they do takes the power away from the people and gives it to the government.
Where can people find you online?
Conservativecannonade.org.
And I am Douglas V. Gibbs. I've been your host, douglasvgibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. Email me, douglasvgibbs@yahoo.com, or constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless you, and God bless America. We'll see you next week.